Start your day just right. Welcome to Mornings Together with Rob, Mon, and Bernie.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mornings Together. This is a bit of a weird situation for us today.
It is bizarre.
So we are actually recording today's episode, which is going to be going out on the 15th of October. Hopefully, if we get all our details right and pushing things out. We are recording this actually on Monday afternoon on the 5th of October.
There we go.
10 days in the past from when you're actually watching this.
And so much could change.
Who knows what's actually going on?
We could just bust out a whole bunch of prophecies and find out if they're true.
Or be incredibly wrong. But the one thing I know to be true is that guaranteed Georgia has probably been the first one to comment.
That's
this
right.
week. So
Yeah.
good morning,
Her
Georgia.
or Michaela.
Michaela would probably be in there as well.
Or
That's a close
Pauline
second.
Longwood.
Or Pauline. Or Hannah might make an appearance. But probably
Yeah,
not.
Henny Hen.
There we go.
Darren might even be in there. Who knows?
Yeah, it's
Hi,
always
everybody.
kind of a race. Yeah,
This morning we've got Fergus on the show with us.
yeah,
Morning, Fergus.
yeah, Fergus.
So we'll get into Fergus' story in a little bit. But today is the Feels Thursday.
It's the
So even though it's pre-recorded, we've got all the same fun
Yeah.
little bits and
Same.
pieces for you today.
We love it.
So it is the Feels Thursday. So everything's going to happen as it usually is. The only thing missing is you. But because, we've got this virtual campfire thing,
Yes.
it's going to be nice and warm and good,
Close.
regardless of when you end up
That's right.
watching or listening back to this.
We're listening to that. Well, the aircon's going behind us.
Yes, for the first time, the aircon behind us is on cool rather than heat.
We also have producer Logan. in the
Producer
house.
Logan's here with
Yeah,
us.
Logan.
Hello,
Come on.
everyone.
Let's
Hey.
see
Yeah.
those eyebrows, birthday boy. Come on. Yeah,
What?
there
That's
he
right.
is. It's Logan's birthday.
It's Logan's birthday
Yeah.
on the 5th of October or the 15th
22.
of October?
Fifth.
5th.
2
Happy birthday,
days.
Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Bernie forget?
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't know.
There you go.
On
Yeah.
the 15th of October, we would be actually having getting close to my birthday,
Oh,
which is the 19th. Just saying.
Oh.
Ooh.
Anybody else have a birthday going on in the next few weeks?
There
That
we
is awesome.
So the reason we're pre-recording today is because the day that this is going to go live is we're all heavily involved with the Global Leadership Summit, which is
Yes.
going to be happening at the same time. So you're going to have a real battle on your hands right now, whether you're going to
Yep.
keep watching this or jump across
Join
and
us.
watch the Global Leadership Summit.
That's right.
Maybe watching both at the same time. If you are, kudos.
Yeah.
Maybe you're sitting in the BBC auditorium right now,
Yeah.
watching the Mornings Together, whilst also watching the GLS.
Because one of the videos we chose is boring.
Having this sneaky
All the
watch.
videos are fantastic.
Well,
Let me put that out there. But
That's
maybe you
right.
want to watch both of us at the same
Yeah.
time.
Right on.
And this comment now has just become relevant for at least one person.
That's
There you go.
right.
You're sitting there going, "Wow."
But
prophecy.
Fergus, you're with us today.
Yeah.
Fergus, we know you around BBC because you are a regular funeral director that comes into BBC. But for those who may not know who you are, why don't you tell a little bit about who you are and your whānau?
Yeah, well, good morning. So I'm part of the BBC family. We've been here for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'm married to Carolyn. We have 5 kids, 3
Yeah.
boys who are all grown up
Wow.
and living in Auckland and working in Auckland. And then we've got two daughters who are at home. One who's part of the young adults group here at BBC and one is part of Phase.
Part of my house.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come on,
yeah. So I hear all about what you guys get up to
yeah.
on a Monday night, running around the streets, terrorising the neighbourhoods.
That's right. I was not involved with that.
No, not at all. And so, yeah, we worship here and it's great to be part of the family here. So I work as a funeral director with Legacy Funerals here in Tauranga and I've been doing that for just coming up 2 years. So before that, I had a background, lots of different jobs, but I guess the main ones was that I spent 11 years as a minister in a mokoro, pastoring the local church out there. And then prior to that, I spent a number of years working with St John Ambulance on the road. So those kind of the main highlights of the vocational
Wow.
history.
Yeah.
I'm a
Very
mainlander, so I grew up in Dunedin.
Hold up.
Migrated to the North Island when I was about 30.
Yeah.
And didn't think I'd ever live here, but here I am. And
Here you are.
yeah,
Life's
we live in a
so good.
mokoro.
Life's so good,
Life's
right?
so good.
Yeah.
Not so bad. I went back down home a couple of weeks ago, and I still love it down there. But yeah, it's
Got off the walker.
cold.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cold.
Well, we have family, and I have family in Dunedin, and every time we're on a call with them, they always seem to skite about how good the weather is down there.
Oh, it's great. The weather is fantastic. I mean, last week it was what was it snowing,
Mhm.
and then 2 days later it was 22 degrees.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
The joke was we used to pay the weatherman to tell all the Aucklanders how bad the weather was, so that they wouldn't come.
So
to
They
wouldn't
would go.
come down.
Yeah.
That's
And they
good.
moved to
Hey,
Tauranga.
They moved
Yeah.
to Tauranga
But
instead.
whenever I've been to Dunedin, it's been amazing.
Mm.
My daughter was
That is
went
nice
to
spot.
uni there. And amazingly beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
really pretty.
I like Dunedin.
It's got a great vibe as a city.
It's
Yeah,
got a
it
really
does.
cool vibe.
Yeah.
Shout out to our Dunedin listeners this
Yeah.
morning. Don't know how many of you are out there, but hi.
Yeah.
So today is the Feels Thursday, and on the Feels Thursday, we're going to get into Fergus's story a bit more in a little bit. But before we do that, we've got our catch-up question.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And today's catch-up question is a little bit interesting. Well, they're actually all very interesting. Not very
A little bit.
A little bit. Today's question is: if you could rewrite any significant moment in history, and it's general history, not your own personal history, just like history, what would you choose, or what would you choose to change, and why?
Good grief. See, now you're talking. See, I get a little bit antsy with this because being a sci-fi nerd,
Yeah.
you're changing history, which is time, which
Yeah.
messes up all time.
Oh yeah.
Post that
butterfly
event.
effect,
This is creating
weird
a
stuff.
creating
Yeah.
an alternate.
Come on.
Yeah, the
alternative
butterfly
truth.
thing. Yeah.
The truth. See,
Yeah.
producer Logan's on my wavelength.
That's
here.
right.
So,
Your change is going to create a tangent universe. So
man,
It's all timey-wimey.
it's all timey-wimey. Exactly. I want someone else to go first.
I reckon producer Logan should kick us off.
Yeah, come on, Logan.
Just off the top of my head.
Yep.
The US government canceling the Apollo program. And if they
Ooh.
had continued it, where would we be today?
Oh,
That's true.
because at what point did they cancel it? It was
After Apollo 17,
yeah,
they canceled it and then
Yeah.
did other stuff. Never went back to the moon.
never went back to the moon.
Mm.
But other people did.
Yes, have they?
No, no one else
Russians,
has
didn't
landed on. No one else landed on the moon
Ooh,
after the Apollo program. There you go.
that we know
That we know of.
Mm.
There must be a reason they didn't go back again. Someone has already up there.
It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
really expensive.
Monica, what about you?
Change. Wow.
Oh my gosh, I know I don't want to sound like real cheesy, but I've often said,
Mm.
like in biblical times, like, man, a woman should have written one of those gospels for more detail. You know?
There it is.
Like, come on.
There it is.
Come on, we want more detail. What was the writing in the sand? A woman would have told you.
She would have.
What she was wearing, or what she wasn't wearing, whatever. Okay. Or the first words when Jesus rose, from
Yeah.
the dead. It'd be like, ta-da, or what did he say?
Yeah, we would have got the full transcript.
We would have gotten the full transcript and it would have been epic. Yeah. To hear like the details.
Every detail.
Yeah,
Every
detail.
detail. And what was
he
said.
was wearing this, and I
Yeah.
didn't like his tunic.
Or
And
in
actually,
the upper room when they were
But-
having the Last Supper, it would
but
have been
think
like,
about how
so
many-
tell us what was going on. Yeah.
But think about how many thousands of books would not have been written
that's right.
That's right.
trying to interpret what was
That's-
written in
ooh.
the sand and what was said.
And what was
Yeah,
said.
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
What was written in the
Exactly.
sand. There
You
you
know
go.
what I mean? In the upper room, and what was it like? When Judas, and everybody looked that way, and he's like, "No, like the details
It's
would have
true.
been awesome."
Yeah.
So
Fergus, what about you?
So I'm going to go local history, New Zealand history,
Mhm.
more modern history. The day they shut down Georgie Pie.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
that's a tragedy.
It was a
That's
national
right.
tragedy.
It
No
was like a
75-cent
thing in
pies.
Tauranga.
Well, I mean, not just in Tauranga, but in
Yeah.
New Zealand. I
Everywhere.
think it was
Yeah.
it was something like
I mean-
Kiwi iconic. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit older now, and my palate has matured a bit, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure I would eat the things anymore.
Yeah.
But in the day, I think it was a New Zealand homegrown
Yeah.
fast food alternative. The only
a
place you
beast.
found it was New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's right.
The $1 mince pie, the
So good.
$2 apple pie with the ice cream on top.
Yep.
And then the big sort of American corporate comes in and takes it over,
Smokes
and
them.
that's it. It's
Yeah.
all over, and it's kind of iconic of a lot of what then happened in New Zealand from
Yeah.
then on with banks and other
Yep.
corporate organizations.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to go for my moment in history.
And,
Yeah.
and just to give you a little bit of context there, Fergus, that's where I took my wife for her first date.
Hey.
Classy. Georgie Pie and the movies. Hey, we're married 21 years. Don't you laugh?
That's obviously working
21
for you.
years.
there.
That,
Georgie
that
Pie.
totally worked for him, Georgie.
I remember
Pie.
Georgie
Oh.
Pie had the best playgrounds.
Yep.
Because there'd always be like 2-story ones within the actual building.
Yeah.
So good. And
Yeah.
you could
That's
have
why
like 10
McDonald's
pies for
bought them.
$5.
Yeah.
That's what-
So the
My
playground
daughter,
is-
yeah, that's right, the playground.
Uh,
Americans could never. I'm going to say that like meat pies are just something we cannot get our head around.
No.
Wow.
No, sweet pie, not a meat pie. Just
I've had
like-
American exchange students, and we took them for meat pies, and they were just like, "We want to take these home."
Yeah.
Come on, with
Yeah.
cheese as well. A thing in history, I'm a bit of a Renaissance lover of art and
Mhm.
buildings and architecture, and so for me, if World War II was shorter and they they sorted that out earlier, we would have a whole lot more architecture in Europe
Ooh,
that we could admire and love. And so for me, you can't. I think if you stop this is the time traveler. I mean, you can't stop the war, but if you stopped it earlier, and the win came earlier, less lives lost. But then, what do we get? What do we get to keep? So that's probably where I'd go.
I was thinking the same thing around, if it ended differently, like there weren't the A bombs in Japan and stuff like that. Imagine what the world would be like if that had not happened, if there had been another solution to end that war.
Logan's got something.
What do you got for us, Logan?
And not just the atom bombs, but also like the carpet bombing of Germany and all sorts. There's a lot of places all over Europe that got heavily damaged.
My change in history is if someone just loved on Hitler when he was a kid.
There you go.
Because you hear his story, and a lot of it comes from insecurity about not being accepted by his family and being rejected out of art academies and stuff like that. And I wonder what the world would have been like if someone had actually taken it on board and loved on him the best they possibly could have.
Yeah, that's good.
The world would be a very different place.
Very different place. Yeah, we may not have the same world.
We may, none of these outcomes. A world where Georgie Pie keeps going on.
Georgie Pie.
Yeah,
McDonald's wouldn't be year round today. It'd be Georgie Pies.
I would have been taking my wife to Georgie Pie. This is the thing.
Well, you would have still been.
I would have taken her to some average place like McDonald's.
That's right.
She would have been like, "Get out of here, loser."
If Georgie Pie was still here, you'd be taking her every anniversary.
That's right. Yeah. I take her to Wendy's most anniversaries because that's actually where we met.
Yeah.
So come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there you go. Maybe in the comments today, whenever you're watching this, you can chuck in your thoughts on things that you're changing in history. I don't know. I think it's a fascinating question.
It is because you start thinking about all the other things. Yeah.
All right. Flavor Rob.
Yeah, Flavor.
You ain't gonna understand this. Flavor Rob. Baby.
Gotta get that.
It just finishes abruptly.
There it is. So this week, my blessed daughter made us some scones. And there is the perfect scone, okay? It's light and fluffy. It's not dense and gluggy. We have whipped cream with raspberry jam, the only way you have a great scone. But it's even better when it's a cheese scone, okay?
Yeah.
But you got to be careful how much fat you put into a scone because that'll just turn it into really dense kind of situation. So the real basic recipe for a scone is 2 cups of flour, and for every cup you put a teaspoon, get that right, a teaspoon of baking powder, and that's your base right there, and butter, just plain old butter, and some salt, of course. And there's your basic dough. But the most important thing about a really good scone is that you're sifting the dry ingredients, and you're actually breaking the butter up so much so that it looks like a sandy texture. Okay, and then you bring it together. Now, that dough can do so many things. You can make little spaghetti and cheese pinwheels that you can put in a little muffin tin. You can roll it out. You can put dates in it. You can make them sweet or savory. Scones are just awesome.
Yeah,
they really are.
And then how you bake them. So some people will bake them for so long they get burnt on the bottom. Okay, just don't do that. Okay? If you want to grill some cheese on the top, just take them out early and just put a little cheese on and put it back in. The reality is that a good scone goes so well with coffee, with tea. It's just good.
It's
you can whip them up in 20 minutes.
So easy.
So people come around I'm coming around in half an hour.
Yeah.
You're gonna have scones hot out of the oven as people are walking in with a cup of tea. How good is that? So for me, scones real simple to make, and most of us will have the Edmonds cookbook.
Yep.
Some of my favorite recipes actually come from Edmonds, and you just put a little touch of whatever you want in it. But you can put things like basil and tomato in them. You want to put some dry herbs in it as well. That is fantastic. So it's really, really simple recipe. Everyone needs to give it a go. And I'll tell you what, afternoon tea with a good scone, cream and raspberry jam. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
You've been in Tauranga now for over a year.
Yep.
Have you been to the Brookfield New? I don't know if they still do these. Have you tried one of their cream cheese and I think it's blueberry scones that they do there in house?
Blueberry. Well, no, I haven't.
I don't know if they're still doing them, but I remember when we were missionaries and we lived around the corner, we would go down there most afternoons if we needed a bit of a treat. One of those because they made them in house in the bakery or the supermarket. They come out, just like that. Beat them up.
I know
Amazing.
Irene's Sunday morning scones here. You know, it's pretty hard
Her
to beat
savory
those.
scones, yeah, they're
And I
amazing.
love the way that she does it. She actually folds the recipe in, so it's three. Looks like a pinwheel, but it's about this big. Oh,
Yeah,
it's
with
so
feta.
good. I can
and
only eat
all
about
the other
half of
good
one of
It's
those.
so
It's so
good.
big,
Yeah,
but you know, and
super yummy.
beautiful butter. Nothing else. Don't put
That's right.
margarine on these
No,
things.
just
Butter.
Mm.
Just melt their butter in there.
Yeah.
Happiness.
Now,
right
the
there.
other American in the room will testify that biscuits, American biscuits, kind of
Biscuits.
like that's our version,
Yeah.
are really amazing.
They're kind of like
They are.
they're very much your basic scone.
It depends on what's
Biscuits.
in them, man.
What's in them?
Hey.
What's the difference? You
That
tell me.
made Kyle turn around.
Kyle's turned around on that one. What?
You do it, the
So
biscuits.
Kyle,
Don't be
over
talking
there,
about biscuits.
scone or American biscuit? All the way.
Oh, stop it.
Sausage gravy
Sausage
on,
gravy.
biscuits and gravy. Oh my word, the
There
best.
you go.
Yeah.
Chuck in your votes in the comments today. What you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's hear a collective boo.
Yeah.
from the Kiwis.
And
But,
if you're maybe like me and you're a bit baking inept, though I am learning how to get better, you can actually buy packs of the Edmonds
that's
pre-made
right.
kit of the scone. But it's just
Check it out.
flour and a bit of salt and
Yeah.
stuff in there, and you can just chuck that bad boy in your
Boom.
And you
mix
do
it,
it.
whip it up, and you're away.
Happiness right there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Flavor Rob.
You ain't gonna understand this flavor,
Rob.
baby.
How we doing? It's interesting doing the pre-record thing, isn't it?
It is
it's-
real
I
interesting.
keep
Strange.
going to look there and to see comments, but there's
There's
just
no
no.
comments.
It's all right. All right, so we'll do some housekeeping. So if you've got stories, you fire those through to stories@bethlehem.org.nz. We love hearing what's going on for you in this crazy year. We're in October already.
Yeah.
And it's just flying by. Let us know how you're doing. You can follow the church on social media using the tag @BethBapChurch, or you can say that's on Instagram and on Facebook. You can follow the church. If you need any help, we had Pastor Eric on a couple weeks ago. You can get in touch with the care team, care@bethlehem.org.nz, or give the church a call 07576 2344 and just ask them or let them know how they can help you out. There's lots of different things they can do. If you have any prayer requests, you can fill out the prayer card on Sunday. You can, there's a way to do it through the website.
Yep.
But you can also text them in using keyword BBC prayer through to 4040. Excuse me. And second to last this morning, isn't it great being back together
Yeah, I know. So great.
on a Sunday mornings and
Yep.
evenings? So you can join us in person 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 6:30 p.m. here at Bethlehem Baptist Church. The services will also be live at 9 a.m. and 6:30 p.m.
Yep.
Like we said, this is pre-recorded and it's going out in the future. Hopefully things are still the same in a week's time. If not, sorry for the misinformation. But yeah, join us in person or online all those different times there. The Sunday evening will be on a new series at that point, won't
We
it?
No.
will. First John.
First
Yeah.
John.
It's called Come and
Oh,
See.
when this comes out, yes,
Yeah, when
that's
this comes
right.
out,
yeah.
new
That's right.
series,
We'll be
yeah.
in a series.
That's right. New series. Come and see First John. It's worth listening
That's
to.
right.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And finally, this morning, we are recording this in the past, and you may listen to this in the future or in the
right.
future's future. And you can do this via audio. We do release them to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts. Just search Mornings Together on both those platforms, and you should be able to find us. And you too can join us around the virtual campfire that is always warm, is always cozy. The chat is always good, the banter rich. Welcome to the virtual campfire. Great to have you with us once again today. All right. Well, we're going to get into things with Fergus today.
Yeah, Fergus.
So, as you heard before, Fergus, he's done a few things. You've been an ambulance,
Mhm.
you've been a minister,
Mhm.
and now you're a funeral director.
Mm.
But before all, and amongst all this, when and where and how did you meet Jesus?
I'm going to give you a real non-Baptist answer.
Oh,
Oh,
No, this is
Because
good.
I was ordained as a Presbyterian minister. That was my home church, was
Mhm.
a Presbyterian church. But I always used to joke that I was born a Christian.
Yeah.
My parents were both very strong Christians, had a really strong, vibrant faith. And growing up as a child, I didn't know any different. That was what I not only experienced in church and Sunday school, but I guess I saw lived out in their lives. So
Wow.
we actually, my dad managed the Presbyterian church campsite just out of Dunedin called Turahanga. So we had lots of involvement with Bible class and youth groups and different ministries and different ministers over the years, really great men of God who regularly were in our house who regularly sought Dad out for spiritual advice and guidance, and so I just kind of grew up in that environment. So that was how that was. And I guess about the age of 14, I really became, I guess I had my first adult awakening, if you like, or spiritual experience. So we had a thing called this Life in the Spirit seminars that were being run, and in our church they were run, and they really heralded the beginning of the charismatic renewal at that time in our church. And so it was the first time I became really personally aware of the Holy Spirit's influence on my life and work on my life. And that sort of renewal poured through the church for a number of years. So we saw mass increase in numbers of people attending, and the work of the Holy Spirit manifesting itself really physically, tied up with some really good biblical teaching and real wise guidance. And so that was a really good grounding. And then from then on, I guess it's just God hasn't changed, but I have constantly, and that hasn't always been for the good. It's like the Song of Ascents here. Sometimes I'm on the mountaintop, and sometimes it feels like the mountain's in my way. I've certainly had plenty of experiences of God on the mountaintop, but I've either through circumstances or through my choices, I've ended up in the valleys, sometimes really deep in the valleys. And I guess through all of that, I find that that God is above all things gracious and patient and generous and forgiving.
So good.
He's always there. He's always calling you, and he's always being gracious and generous and merciful to you. And so you find yourself restored time and time again. And that's probably a brief summation of my journey.
Good summation of your journey.
I know. Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're a funeral director.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to explain the journey that you went on from being a minister to being a funeral director?
I guess grief has always been part of my life. So even when I was younger, I encountered grief in a number of ways. So the first memory of death for me, I guess, was my grandfather on my paternal side. We didn't have a lot to do with him, and he came and stayed with us a few months, and then one day he wasn't there.
Oh wow!
He went to hospital and never came back.
And
I was young, and I didn't understand or know.
Mhm.
And in those days, you didn't talk about death with children.
Exactly.
And then I had an uncle who drowned, and likewise, I was aware of his death, and I was aware that there was a funeral happening, but I didn't attend.
Wow.
And then the next one was my father. So that happened when I was 17. So beginning my what was 7th form year there. So my dad died of cancer. So 6 months from diagnosis to death.
Oh wow!
And that was just at age 17 was pretty pretty traumatic. And then in brief succession, I lost a best friend in a climbing accident that I was supposed to be climbing with. I lost a classmate and a girlfriend, and all within about 12 months following. By that time, I was starting to do ambulance. I was encountering death at a professional level as well on a regular basis. And I guess when I came into ministry, you continue to live with life and death. So, funerals, and in Mokoroa, we were not only the church, but also a venue for funerals. So we did a lot of funerals for people outside of the church. So when I came out of ministry, needed something to do, pay the bills. And so I had funeral directors who would call me and say, hey, look, would you be interested in leading a service? And so I started doing that and ended up becoming a funeral celebrant, and was trying to juggle full-time work and doing around 100 funeral services a year as a celebrant.
Wow.
And then got to a point where I couldn't juggle both. And Legacy Funerals were looking for someone at the time, and so I reached out to them and had a conversation with them. We already had a working relationship. And so, here I am. As a funeral director rather than just a funeral celebrant. So
So sorry, I'm going to add a question.
No, you go.
So as a funeral director, you not only help lead the funeral and the family through this things, you have to do some training. Did you do embalming training, all those kind of things as well to do with dealing with the bodies?
So yeah, I guess there's two aspects to the funeral director's role. One we say is the physical aspect. So going to the place of death, transferring the deceased into our care, preparing them, taking them to a place for a funeral service, and then obviously afterwards he's either looking after the burial or cremation. And in the process of that, there's the for most people there's the embalming process. So a lot of funeral directors in New Zealand are also embalmers, but at Legacy we tend to specialise in that role. So we have a team of embalmers who work for us, and that's all that they do. I shouldn't say all that they do, but that's their specialisation, and they focus on that. They qualify in that, and they're exceptional at what they do. And what they do is I guess give families a really special gift. Is that they give their loved ones back to them for a short period of time, in a way that allows them to have a particular memory of their loved one at peace and at rest. Often, we say death sometimes robs dignity from people, and what our girls do is that they restore that dignity to people, and that's just such an incredible gift that they give to them, and such an important part of the whole grieving process. So I don't deal with that. I look after the family in terms of guiding them through what is often a very unique process for them. Helping them arrange the service and all that goes around that.
Wow.
It's such a,
What a ministry.
unique but powerful role that you find yourself in. Like you said, it's a unique experience for families. Like you do it many of these, but for each person. So most people will be hearing this and think, man, dealing with the amount of death and the amount of grief, how do you keep doing what you're doing? How do you keep walking alongside these people who are going through grief and the passing of loved ones?
I guess the most important thing is it's not my grief. So I don't have any right to own that grief or try to own that grief or to make it my own, because it's not my own. So my job is not to take someone's grief off them, it's to take the stress off them that comes from all the busyness and the physical load, if you like, around a funeral and around a death, which allows them to then focus on grieving and on going through that journey. That doesn't mean to say it doesn't affect you at times, and it's totally different when it's your own situation. So we've been recently through a family bereavement and a completely different set of circumstances, completely familiar, but completely different at the same time. And I think that's the thing for all funeral directors, is we're still human, we still have our own families, we still have our own grief and bereavements and deaths to deal with as well. So it's about doing that. It's about having balance. So it's being fully present with a family when you are working alongside of a family and journeying through them with that, and then being able to be fully present also when you're not there. So when I go home to my family, I need to be fully present with my family. I need to take time out for myself, have good time off, have a good balance in life, really to be healthy and to be able to serve the families well, and to be able to recognise your own strengths and limits, and I guess also to be able to work alongside others. So we've got a really fantastic team of people that just will step up and do whatever they need to do to support each other, rather than I'm doing my thing and they're doing their thing. It's a real team effort.
Absolutely.
Don't you love that role that you have of taking the stress up of families so they can just be together and grieve without having to worry about all the logistics?
I think that's one of the things that people forget. Well, they don't realize because they've usually never done it before. I mean, if you think about it, most people will organize maybe 4 funerals in a life. Their parents, maybe their in-laws, maybe a sibling, and if they're really unfortunate, then a child. But 3 or 4 times in a lifetime, they're going to be involved in organizing a funeral. If you think about a marriage, a wedding, for instance, how much preparation goes into a wedding, and you have months and months and all the decisions made, you're asking to create an event that's just as significant at the other end of the life cycle. But you do it in a matter of days. And what people underestimate is how busy it gets.
I bet.
So there's all of the decisions that they need to make and all of the things that they need to do. And then there's the phone calls and the visitors and the food and the flowers and And on top of that, they're dealing with their emotional load and their grief in the midst of that. So they're not at full capacity
Anyway.
by any
Yeah.
stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So that's where the funeral director comes in, is really to be able to say, hey, these are the things that we need to do. This is how we'll do it. And to really listen to the family. That would be the key element of the funeral director's role, is to actually listen to the family, what's being said and what's not being said. And to be able to interpret that and help guide them to make some decisions that really gives them the outcome that they want to give. Okay.
I remember as a senior pastor, one of my first funerals I had to take. Well, it wasn't as a senior pastor, but the place of funeral director was so helpful for us. We had 2 or 3 different funeral directors that would use our facility, and I was able to go and meet with them, and they were saying, okay, well, here's how you work through it. I ended up doing probably 10 funerals in 1 year, I remember. And I was just like, oh, I'm so glad I've been guided so well. And that, funeral directors do such an amazing job around that as well. I don't have to think about all these other things. I'm just working with the family, and it's just so helpful.
And that's been a change in society. A few decades ago, churches were the only place that you did a funeral. So ministers and churches were used to doing funerals. And now, as you say, you would do only a few funerals in a year as a minister. And funerals have changed significantly in the last few decades. So whereas they tended to be primarily a religious event with a little bit about the person, now they're either primarily about the person and very little about God, or nothing about God in some cases, or there's a nice mix. So I did a service actually for a friend on the weekend, and it was just the ideal mix. It was all about him and all about God.
So good.
And it was just a really beautiful mix. So there's so much variety now in funerals and what families are wanting for their loved ones.
How do you find that, yourself, you love Jesus, you're a Christian, you're interacting with families who come from very different backgrounds, probably, a lot of time when we're confronted with significant grief or loss, it leads people to ask questions. Have you found yourself entering into conversations with families around?
Yeah, sometimes. We always come from a place of total respect of where people are at, so never imposing our own belief or value system on other people, but allowing them to express what they need to express. But certainly for me, when I work alongside a Christian family, then obviously, we have a shared faith, we have a shared belief, we have a shared hope, we have shared language. And I know that, for instance, a couple of the services I've done here at BBC, it's being part of the same church family just means that there's just so much more in common. I know everybody involved. I know all the staff, the pastors. So we're able to relate and actually work together on the same page very well for the family.
I think I would say, in my experience, that doing weddings, child dedications, these kind of things, is as much a privilege, I think, as taking someone's funeral. I just find it such a privilege to be in that family environment, to help with that processing of grief. But then, it's an important part of life that I think, as you say, we only experience personally those few times, but more realistically, we're going to be involved with it, and it's important for us to engage with the families and the people involved from that like it's a place of privilege to be able to do that.
Well, it's an intimate, holy place.
It is.
And you're seeing people at their most vulnerable.
And it's one of the few things that we never get to practice.
No.
So a wedding, you have a wedding rehearsal.
Yeah.
But unless you're the queen, you don't have a funeral rehearsal. And I think it's also so it's really important that everything that we do is of the very best that we can bring to that family, because we don't want anything negative to take away from that experience of grieving, or to re-traumatize or add to their grief.
No, that's right.
But at the same time, probably the most important thing we do, whether it's funeral directors or whether it's pastors or whomever is working with that family, is not necessarily about what we do, but it's about how we make them feel.
Yes.
You made me feel loved. You made me feel cared for.
Yeah.
You took the stress off me.
Yep.
is probably far
So
more
good.
important than all the other elements.
Yeah.
That's definitely been my experience when we had to say goodbye to our daughter.
Mm.
The funeral team we worked with were absolutely incredible, and they did everything that you mentioned. But at the same time, they, like you were saying, entered into an intimate and vulnerable space and just did it with absolute, genuine heart and
Yeah.
everything like that. It was a huge blessing to be blessed by them in that way, and just the way that they composed themselves and then interacted with
Yeah.
us. In a blur of a few days, them were a really positive experience for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think in the midst of that, one of the things that we're trying to do now is to slow the process down.
Yep.
We've in New Zealand, we've had this culture of rushing funerals.
Yeah.
Someone's died. We need to organise a funeral.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
We want to have a funeral in 3 days' time or in 4 days' time. We're going, oh, maybe we just need to slow it down a little bit. And certainly for most families that are slowing it down and taking maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe even longer days,
Yeah.
then what they're finding is that it's creating more time.
Yeah.
It allows them to take care of all the details and the busyness and then just have time to stop
Yeah.
and to be and to breathe and to be families.
So good.
And they come to the funeral service in a much healthier space where maybe that raw edge of grief isn't quite so raw.
Yep.
And they can genuinely, still grieve and be sad and shed tears, but still really begin to celebrate and remember the person's life well.
Yeah.
Whereas if they rush into it too soon, they haven't even completed that first task of grieving, which is accepting the reality of death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For
that's
them, they haven't even accepted that the person's dead.
Yeah.
And here they are talking about their life.
Yeah.
And it's kind of very surreal,
Yeah.
as you know.
So that actually almost kind of links into the next question I have for you is, we're in a very much a season of change.
Yeah.
And everybody's lives have been hugely disrupted by a number of different things. And we've talked on the show before about how there's actually grieving that needs to happen in terms of, say, if you had a trip planned to see family and that's not able to happen, and maybe not even going to be able to happen next year as well. The grieving, the things that should have occurred. What has been your greatest sort of learning from the season that you could be able to pass on to others around the changing of seasons that we've been, or changing of constant shifting of sands, I should say, of circumstance.
Yeah, it has been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think we often associate grief with death,
Yeah.
but grief's always associated with every loss. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, I don't know where our first grief is.
Yeah.
I was wondering if the first grief was the first time our mummy left us.
Yeah.
Somewhere, and we started grieving the loss of our mummy,
Yeah.
wherever that was, at preschool or at kindergarten or at school, wherever, and then, everybody's experienced that first loss of relationship as a young teen,
Yeah.
when the love of your life
Oh
dumps
yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So grief is I think grief is the most common human experience.
Yeah.
They joke about death and taxes. Well, apparently some people avoid paying taxes, but everybody, everybody comes across death
Grief. Yeah.
and grief that's associated with it. And so we have this loss, and so you're right. There's loss of relationship, there's loss of opportunity, there's loss of dreams, there's loss of physical ability, emotional capacity, or intellectual capacity. Of income, of financial security, of all of those sorts of things. And I think this season particularly has, as you've said, has really highlighted that things that we've taken for granted. It was nothing to be able to, for some people, to be able to go, okay, I'm going to have an overseas holiday and I'll book it. And some people did that on a regular basis, and it's just assumed that they would be able to get on a plane and in a few hours' time would be somewhere else in the world having a fantastic holiday, and now you can't. For some people, they couldn't even travel to Auckland or Auckland back to here. Something that was just taken for absolute granted. And I guess taking that into our area, people assumed that when a loved one became terminally ill, they would be able to be with them, and that they would be able to attend the funeral. And of course, for a period of time, that wasn't possible. And so we saw lots of grief. We also saw lots of, I guess, creative expression of grief. We now record and live stream just about every single service we do.
Wow.
And we always have people joining from overseas.
Mm.
We're seeing more and more now people recording messages of love and support and sending them in so that they can be played as part of the service. People are also understanding that funerals are no longer a one-day event, that they encompass a period of time from the time the person dies, not just to the day of the funeral, but often to some time later when the family can gather together again.
Yeah.
And for some people, they still don't know when that is.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got relatives and friends overseas, you don't know when you're going to be able to get your family back together again.
That's right.
But people are holding on to ashes and to hope that they're going to be able to gather together and have another event, another gathering of some sort to remember the person that's passed away. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that's a healthy thing, that it's not just right, we've done this, move on.
Yeah.
That we're actually taking a bit more time to progress. So I guess the learnings is that, you know, let's not take things that we have for granted. Celebrate even the small things that we have. And understand that we may not always have them, and there is seasons in life. And so let's make the most of those seasons. That's good.
Yeah. That's such a good word. Yeah. It's so
Amazing.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, we just got to sit on that for a minute. Hey,
It's
soak
too
that in.
good.
I know. Yeah.
One of the things that I think you touched on, Fergus, is that we actually avoid grief. We're a culture that has become so averse to grief, to sadness. I mean, the classic movie Inside Out, which is the kids' movie. It's all about joy and not about sadness. But we've got to realize how to embrace sadness. And you know, and I think what I love about Māori culture is there's this remembrance that they do in a tangi over days, like you're saying, instead of like, let's get them in a box and get them in the ground in 3 days. There's hey, we're going to celebrate life that was lived among us, all of these kind of things. And we actually embrace the grief. Yes, it's such a loss, but man, we're so thankful for this person, you know, and holding those two things in tension. We just, it makes me feel bad. Let's leave it, you know, instead of embracing the grief process.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how Maori culture is starting to influence, I guess, grief traditions in Pākehā society as well. So we're now seeing much more commonly people being returned home and spending time at home. And I think that's just so important. I can't overemphasize how important that is. Because then you have this time. And it's time to process. It's time to talk to the person and have conversations with the person. It's time to laugh and to cry and to joke and to get all of that work that needs to be done. And it allows people to come to that place of realization that this person is actually dead. I heard someone say the other day we brought a loved one home, and we took the lid off the casket, and their loved one was there. And they said there were 3 things that hit them almost straight away. One, that this was their loved one. There was no denying that. Right? It wasn't like, oh, did they really die? Was it really them? No, it's really them. 2, that they're really dead. There's no denying this any longer. Right? But thirdly, that their spirit was no longer there. That this was the body of their loved one. And we fuss over and we spend time over and we honor the body of the loved one because that's the only way that we're related to that person. Up until then. But we realize that actually their soul, their spirit is no longer inhabiting this flesh and bones. And I've said it a few times now, where our relationship doesn't end with a person when they die. It changes.
That's right.
So it goes from a physical to a spiritual relationship.
So good.
And obviously as a Christian, we understand that, what that means. We have a particular interpretation, but even for those who don't have a Christian faith, then they still have an understanding of what that means for them.
That love remains.
And this is an ongoing relationship. It never ceases. It's always going to be a part of who they are. And I guess coming back to your point about the sadness and pain is that we used to talk about healing from grief or getting over grief. We don't ever heal from grief.
No.
It's now part of who we are. We adapt to this life with grief. We carry it with us. It's part of who we are. It shapes us,
Yeah.
and we don't want to get over it.
No.
That's right.
You know,
It
we
calls
don't
you
ever
back.
want to get over it and forget the person that died,
exactly.
whoever
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's okay to carry that pain with you that reminds you of this love and this relationship that
Yeah.
you had for a period of time.
Yep.
So we are becoming used to that and sitting with the grief and the sadness and the pain and allowing the tears to flow, especially for Kiwi blokes. You know, we've got a history of not showing that, but more and more, you know, I mean, I go to a family home or a family gathering, and you know, it's the blokes who are losing it the most now.
Yeah.
You know, women are strong. They shed tears, but they hold it together. But big Kiwi blokes just break down and become a mess.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's actually good. That's
healthy.
It's a good thing to have happen.
It's so good because I think like what Rob was saying, like we try to avoid it as best as we can, but then when we do encounter it, we try to repress it as much as we can.
We live in a culture of escapism.
Yeah, escapism, and it disorientates us when whether it be a loss of a loved one, or it be a loss of a circumstance and things like that, because you kind of repress that rather than going on the journey of actually, okay, this has actually happened. You need to grieve it and then carry it for life. The image that has always stuck with me is the idea that if you imagine your life as a circle, when grief hits you, it consumes that entire circle, and it's you feel it, and it's heavy, and it hurts, but your life is ongoing, and so your circle actually continues to grow from that point, and so your circle may become bigger, but that circle of grief that you carry still has the same density, still has the same feel, still has the same impact. It's just able to float a bit more around the bigger circle of your life.
Your life grows around it.
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It's just it's there, but your life has grown bigger.
Yeah, it's a good image. I talk about strength of feeling versus time. So I always say to people, you know, that the feelings that you have now of grief will never diminish from what they are at this moment in time.
Yeah.
They just occupy less time in your life.
Yeah, so good.
It's
You know,
so
like
good.
that.
So, you know, my dad died 32 years ago. And I can still end up in tears in seconds. It just doesn't happen very often.
Just when you think about it.
So good.
So I think that's, but I think that sitting with pain and working with grief and repressed grief, I guess, is hugely responsible for so much in our society.
It is,
you know, whether it's children who are grieving parents when they were either because of death or because of separation or loss, right through so many of the struggles that we face, whether they're physical or psychological, come from unresolved and repressed grief that people haven't dealt with. They've just tried to push it down until it bubbles up and comes to the surface.
Absolutely. Well, Fergus, I'm just looking at the clock and we're almost out of time. It's been such a great conversation with you today. I know you're going to be so helpful for people who are going to be listening to this later
100%.
on. But if you're hearing this today and you're someone who's either wrestled with grief or currently wrestling with grief, please get in touch with the care team here at BBC. They'd love to walk with you on this journey.
Absolutely.
Through that. So you can get in touch with them, care@bethlehem.org.nz is the email, or give the Church a call on 075762344. But Fergus, I'm going to invite you to pray for us in just a moment. But yeah, man, what a powerful conversation.
I know.
Join us this weekend live at church 9, 11 and 6:30 p.m. or online at 9 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. On all the different platforms you're currently viewing this right now. We will be back on Tuesday for another Talk It Out Tuesday. And we'll be back in real time rather than pre-recorded. But Fergus, why don't you pray for us as we close out our time together today?
Awesome. Thanks. Oh Lord, we thank you that we can gather together in various forms, in person or online, through virtual media. We thank you that we are never alone, even at the point in time when we think we are alone. So I want to pray for the team here, that the work that they do in communicating with people and sharing stories and sharing the love of God. But I also want to pray for people who are listening to this, who are grieving, or who have dealt with grief in their life, or who are facing grief in their life, that they would know above all else your love and your comfort, and that you would give them joy and peace even in the midst of their darkest times. Surround them with people who care. Allow them the freedom to be able to reach out for help when they need to. and ask for your blessing upon the work of this church. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Amen, amen. Well, take care, everybody. Enjoy the weekend, and we will catch you later. See you later.
See you later.
See you, bye.